Alrighty, folks, one of the things I wanted to do today is check in with my fellow real estate investors to see what they thought of the proposal, outline, wish of something being called the Trump homes. We're going to have this conversation with the one and only Jonathan Twombly. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I thought this would be a fun conversation because maybe we're actually going after the affordability with this program called Trump Homes. Have you heard anything about it?
So I have been under a rock for the last 4 days. So I have been on an entrepreneur's retreat in Florida and have not checked news or anything because I removed social media, everything from my phone years ago. So I don't have any access to that stuff. So this is brand new. I have no idea. I don't even know what the Trump homes are. Okay. So this will be fun to react to.
Yeah, let's just throw it out there. So first and foremost, this was Bloomberg in CNBC speaking with Lennar and Taylor Morrison, right? Something like that. Big home builders in the United States. And what they shared, excuse me, my throat's acting up this morning. What they shared is the builders on their own are potentially looking to put together a program where they deliver up to a million affordable single family homes, right? Okay. That's the stated goal. I think it's hard to argue that is a great goal, but you and I step back and go, okay, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to have a profit? You're not a charity, all of those normal things. So near as I can tell, this program, this idea, this framework has a couple of linchpins. First linchpin, who's going to fund it? Well, they're hoping Wall Street. Now, why would Wall Street? They're not a charity. They're, animal spirits. But what's going to happen is these million homes are actually going to be sold on what I would call a lease option, rent to own, right? It may have a different name inside the program, but basically what will happen is you will sign up as a tenant for 3 years, and part of your monthly payment will be saved or escrowed or whatever as ultimately a deposit. And at the 3-year mark, you will have the opportunity to become an owner. So again, builders build, Wall Street funds, Wall Street rips off a profit margin from the 3 years. As we know, a percentage of those won't transact, so they'll get to keep those. And that's kind of the basic framework. So I'll stop there for a moment because there's more details I think we can brainstorm, but that's essentially the idea of what, and again, this is not something Trump has put out there. Trump has said nothing. This is the builders collectively saying, we hear you, Mr. President. What about this idea?
Okay. And they're calling it Trump Homes. Why? Because they want to get him behind it by putting his name
of course.
on it?
He's an ego maniac. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. Now I understand.
It's marketing 101.
Got it. Okay. So it wasn't his tweet. It wasn't like a late night tweet.
No, not this time. It wasn't the 50-year mortgage. It wasn't loan portability. It was builders. And again, it's interesting that you bring that up because what I've been telling my audience is builders are pulling back. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is one way that they could, reinvigorate themselves. That's actually an interesting tweak I didn't think about. But yeah, so ask questions, thoughts, initial reactions. What do you think?
Yes, first I just kind of want to understand what this is. So they're basically thinking of like they're going to offer some sort of structured product backed by Wall Street where Wall Street is going to get some stream of payments for 3 years, but they're going to count those as a down payment for people who exercise this option to buy the homes. And then but where does the affordability piece come in? Like, what is the incentive that makes this affordable? Is it that they have no down payment at all? They just start renting right away. So that makes it affordable? Or
so I think there's a couple of things. And again, the devil is in the details. And frankly, we don't have many. But from what I've read, they are going to be building smaller homes. So that's the first caveat.
Well, that's good.
So again, they just said smaller. They didn't say how small. My hope is 1,350 square feet or smaller.
Yeah, the traditional starter home, right?
Yes, the 995 to 1,350, which was very common in the 1950s. So that's where it starts. I do think there will probably be some, I don't know, other variables in the contract that makes it affordable. But yeah, that's where it starts. Smaller homes.
So smaller homes, presumably smaller lots. right?
Mhm.
And
Of course. Yeah, of course.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean that would be a start. I mean, I guess like you said, the devil is in the details, and we know that construction costs are very high. So it's not, a lot of the stuff that when they're building smaller homes, a lot of what is
It's
like,
fixed. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the expensive stuff is often not the stuff that gets shrunk, like that's got to pay for it anyway. The
Mhm.
kitchens, bathrooms, that sort of thing, like shrinking the bedroom sizes and stuff like that. Yeah, it saves some money, but it probably doesn't. It probably just, proportionally, it's not shrinking as much. Nevertheless, it's a good idea, I think, if they can, find places where they're allowed to do smaller lots, or
Mhm.
maybe they're planning on buying, like in parts of Texas where there's no zoning or something, and they can essentially build whatever they want to,
Sure.
So, I mean, listen, I welcome like any kind of creative thinking around what can be done about this affordability problem. So I think it's a good sign to see them at least trying to grapple with the issue and sort of take some
Yeah.
responsibility for it. So I think and maybe they'll start moving that's a part of the conversation getting moved in a positive direction to where we need to go. And, maybe you start getting some municipalities and stuff on board with this, where they're like going to liberalize their zoning. So this stuff is actually possible. Because I don't know how you do this, like in a place where, even if you've got some farmland that's available for developments, if the municipality you're building in is going to say it's got to be 8 acres, it doesn't really matter. There's 1 acre lots or half acre lots or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not going to help all that much. But maybe there are places where they can essentially build whatever they want to because it's unincorporated, land, and then
Yeah, it's definitely going to have local zoning or support, and to that end, while it's marketing 101 to call them Trump homes because you want the guy at the top behind you. Let's not be confused. Calling it Trump homes is going to piss off just as many people.
Yeah, I mean, maybe what they're hoping is that like they call it that now, so Trump gets interested, and then then that piece of it goes away. So
then it's called American homes or
whatever it is.
Like
that.
So,
affordable. Whatever it is.
A new acronym, I'm sure some creative people out there will create it. But it's funny when I think about this, and again, I said at Resi Club in New York City, over a year and a half ago, that this kind of thinking was the idea, right? We've got to have a national program to build true entry-level housing, which meant 1350 or smaller, right? I put a number on it. And it's going to take this kind of creative thinking, likely a partnership throughout this, lease option or rent to own or whatever you call it. It's an interesting idea. But when I step back and then look at the bigger picture, I actually go, okay, let's just assume this happens. Then I look out and go, okay, so probably nothing happens for the first 6 to 12 months, right? Because it takes a while to get these pipelines and drawings and zoning and maps and all that shit. But, in 2027, we would likely have some inflation. Why do I say that? Well, again, we're going to have wage inflation. If you suddenly have national builders building like they did in 05 and 06, where it's just kind of a muck, you're going to have some wage inflation. Second, you're going to have some input inflation because, again, I don't know if you're paying attention, but lumber is at a record low, so mills are shutting down. Right? If we suddenly unlock 1 million stick builds, that's going to be a problem. And, so there are some downside risks when you kind of look out, going forward. That's where my brain went. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there's that. There's the fact that, like I just said a moment ago, they've got to build these things somewhere, and the zoning has to, be cooperative, right? Both in terms of lot sizes, but house sizes too. I mean, there's like some zoning requires minimum house sizes as well, right? So and then there's community opposition. I mean, it seems to me like the only way that this is going to happen is in unincorporated areas that are like in a lot of southern states. You have areas that are just not within any. They might be within a county, but they're not within any town, right? And so you could buy land there where they have no restrictions and build what they want. So it's going to have to be places like that, I think. And then, with the other thing too is, I mean, who actually physically is going to build these things? I mean, we have seen, because of the immigration policy, we've seen an exodus of precisely the people who are the ones building homes. And when you talk about, trying to build them affordably, well, if you don't have the labor, then the labor costs are going to get real high. And
wage inflation will be a problem. No doubt.
And so then, but they're also just literally like not physically enough bodies to do it, so that's an issue. So we'll see. But all that being said, all those caveats being said, I think that starting the conversation is a positive development.
No, I think it's hard to argue that 1 million entry-level housings is a bad thing. Yeah. Right. There are absolutely downstream ramifications. There are lots of trips and hurdles and blocks, but again, it's still the right thing. But again, as my brain plays this out, it went to inflation first. You know where my brain went second? It actually went to it's going to hurt rentals. Class A apartment rentals are going to suffer, and likely single family rentals will. And again, I'm playing this out in a time block. So now we're out 2 or 3 years, and there's actually units on the ground. It's like, who's going to buy these, right? Who's going to sign up for a 3-year lease? It's likely going to be the people who are in Class A, in single family already, but just can't get that down payment going. So where are they going to pull from? They're not going to pull from people who already own homes. They're not going to sign up for this. No. They're going to pull from the best of the best tenants. That's something that I see coming.
I mean, I wonder about that, because I'm not sure that I'm not sure that necessarily the Class A tenants are the ones who are going to want to live in the starter homes necessarily. They might be really looking for bigger homes that they just are having trouble finding or affording or what have you right now. If they're like, that when you think about the Class A tenants, you're thinking about the young doctors and lawyers and high income professionals. I'm not sure that this is necessarily where those folks are going to want to go. I think maybe you're going to pull a lot more from like your very qualified sort of B class tenants, like people who have good, solid, working class jobs and, sort of lower kind of professional jobs.
Maybe brand new college kids or with their first jobs, or
maybe
getting out of mom and dad's basement.
Potentially, or mom and dad even helping them out with this to get them started. I could definitely see that. But I don't, it's funny. There's like Jay Parsons talks about this a lot. Like he says, there's always this thing like multifamily investors always get all excited every time there's some impediment to buying homes, right? Because they're like, oh, everyone's going to have to rent. Yeah. And they start like licking their chops. And Jay Parsons says this all the time. He says, healthy rental markets and healthy homeowning markets go together. Like they're not like a yin and yang thing where when one is good, the other is bad and vice versa. He said they're usually both good or both bad at the same time. So if you have a healthier home buying market where people are starting to buy, it's good for the economy. That's good for jobs. It's good for renters. Right. So, so I don't think this is necessarily a threat to multifamily. Plus, as we know too, it's going to be like, it may, if they can, if they build like 1 million homes in Texas in 3 years, like that would affect the Texas rental market for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
But that's not the way it's going to happen. It's going to be distributed all over the place. It may impact some places more than others. Some places won't be impacted at all. So I think it's if I were like a multifamily owner, I would not be worried about this. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And again, I don't know. And again, I don't know that I'd be worried about it for a minimum of 3 years. Cause again, there's so much time lag in all of this.
Right.
We probably don't even break ground for 12 months on anything, let alone have the quantity that's going to distort a market. So yeah, it's interesting. But again, we got to go after affordable housing. I do think it's interesting that the builders are, kind of working together to kind of come up with a solution and pulling on different parts of the economy. But hey, it's this kind of creative thinking we need. We need a national plan to build some entry-level housing.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, where can people find you?
So I am on School. I have a really fast growing School group that a lot of our
Nice.
members have joined. It's called Apartment Investors Club. If you want to learn more about how to
There
buy
it is.
apartment buildings. So there it is on screen, school.com/AIC. And I would love to see you over there.
Very cool. I appreciate you. Have a good week.
Thanks, you too.